So this is the last video of this series. What you are going to be doing here is going through and actually creating a packaged build. So this is the kind of build that you could actually send to a friend and have them testing the game. So I'm going to go to File, Package Project, and you'll see that we have Windows. Now I could just select this and set things up, but I'd rather first time go to Package Settings, and we'll get this menu here. Now there's a couple of things to take note of. Some of these are a bit more in depth than what we really need to cover here, such as the HTTP packaging settings. But for the time being, the ones that I recommend you being aware of are build configuration, which allows me to select either development or shipping. Now these two are very similar, however there are some important differences between the two. So in a shipping build, it removes the console from the game, and it removes all stats and profiling stuff as well under the hood. So shipping build's actually going to run better, but you won't necessarily have access to everything that you typically would in a development build. But for the most part, during development, you're going to just be doing development builds. That said, I do recommend every now and then doing a shipping build, just in case, to make sure that nothing is somehow broken in that area. Now, the other settings that are worth noting are your staging directory, which is just where the content's going to get copied to. In this situation, I'm just going to make a section under Udemy, which is going to be in demos, and I'm just going to make a new folder called package. So that'll go to there. Now, you've got a full rebuild. By default, it's off. It's up to you as whether you want it enabled or disabled. It's just the difference between doing an iterative build or not. Sometimes that can cause issues, but I often find it's okay to not do a full rebuild. That said, if you're doing a build, you're going to be sitting down and going for the long haul anyway and, cooking out all the files. So it is probably best practice to actually keep this enabled for the most part, especially if you're doing something like using a build server that's going to be running overnight. Now, here we have nativization of blueprint assets. In 4.14, this is experimental, but from 1.5 and onwards, this is no longer considered an experimental feature. This will convert down all of your blueprint assets to C++, which will make them more efficient. It's up to you whether you want to check this. I strongly recommend, since it's out of experimental from 1.5 onwards, to actually keep this checked, but that's up to you. Now from here, we've got only two other things that we really need to make note of. Both are reasonably important. First is if I click here, I can scroll down and you can see we've got some additional options for what we're cooking and what we're not cooking. Now in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and tell it list of maps to include in a packaged build. If I click this, I can now browse for any maps that I want to have included. So I'm going to make sure that my survival map is included. I'm then going to go up to maps and modes, and I'm going to ensure that the game default map is set to my survival map. So that means that when the game first launches, it'll go straight into that. Now, from here, I'm going to go and change one last thing. I'm going to go to my content browser, and I'm going to open up the game mode. Now, the reason I'm doing this is at the moment we're going to have a really boring game if we just launch in with one mage. So I'm going to set up some waves. I'm just going to set up the first one to be character base. In fact, I might make quite a few character bases in that first round. I'm then going to add another wave, and again I'm going to have a couple of character bases, and then we're going to have the mages come in towards the end. So put you in. Finally, for the last one, I'm going to add a wave and then have a couple of mages here. I'm going to compile and save. And now I'm just going to push this build out. Windows 64. It's already set up because of the directory from staging, so I'm just going to click OK. Now I'm just going to wait for that to finish. And it shouldn't take too long. So now that it's done, I'm going to open up the directory, which has the build inside of it. And that directory is just in packaged. I've got Windows no editor. So I'm going to launch the game up. And the game's loaded up. And I can see if I run around, everything's totally working. We've got our bad guys. throw magic at them, and we're all good. Simple little game. So that's it. That's our project completed. For your continuation, I highly recommend going through, make sure you add some effects and sound effects, but everything that you need to really polish this up, you've been taught.